Hi, I'm C.C. Péan, and this is Reclaiming Your Health. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Reclaiming Your Health. I am your host, Cynthia, and I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you for joining me. Some of you have been rocking with us for over a year now. I think we're almost up to almost 40 episodes. And so thank you for being consistent and thank you for being supportive all of this time. I am so happy to be back here with you all tonight. I know it's been really kind of off and on. We've been doing a lot of reboots. That's because I've been between my home and New Orleans on a long-term job I have there, and I had a hit, so I had to come back home, then I had to go there, and it's just been really hard to get back into the swing of things, so I'm so thankful that I'm able to come back to you live tonight and to teach you how to make one of my favorite dishes. Now, this was actually a special request from Stan Mackey, and it's just coincidental that it's one of my favorite things to eat. And so I'm going to make a version tonight and encourage you all to try it because it's super simple. So one of the things I want to tell you about this dish is it's a vegan pad thai. That's what we're making this evening. And I look at this dish and I say there's good, better, and best. There's three different ways you can make it with pretty much just changing out one ingredient. So good is using these rice noodles, okay? What I love about these rice noodles is they don't even have to be boiled. You pour boiled water over them, let them soften up, and the rest of the cooking is done in the pan. So this is good. And when I'm talking about good, better, best, we're talking about health-wise, okay? So this is good. This is, zero fat, 45 grams of carbohydrates, 4 grams of protein, 10 milligrams of sodium. Good, okay? Then, better are these noodles that I actually found at Costco. They're great. They're called Healthy Noodle, zero fat, 8 grams of carbohydrate, 1 gram of protein, and 180 milligrams of sodium. So this has a little more sodium, but it doesn't have the carbohydrates. And this is a really great substitute. If you want to make a noodle dish like pad thai, this actually works really well. The best option, if you're trying to get away from anything processed at all, is to just use something like zucchini noodles. You can even do the zucchini noodles raw. Okay, or you can slightly saute them, but that's the good, better, and best would be the zucchini noodles. The zucchini noodles, all you need is a spiralizer, a couple of zucchinis, and it works wonderfully. So this evening, we're gonna get started on this. This is such a super fast dish. I'm gonna actually kind of move slowly so we don't have a whole bunch of time left over. So what I've done is I've started my water because I have to pour boiling water over my noodles. And they're all types of different noodles you can get. I've got this at my local Asian market, but I would suggest that you go with ones that you have to soak as opposed to boil. And the other thing is the bigger the noodle, the greater the chance it's going to break. So you want to try to go for thinner noodles, which is kind of difficult because I actually like the thicker noodles. I like my rice noodles kind of like the size of fettuccine. But this is something that you're going to have to play around with and find out which product works the best for you. So I'm going to get into the ingredients, but what I want to do right now is get these noodles out of the package. And I'm not gonna make all of this. I'm gonna make about half the package. Put this in my bowl here. The rest of this I'll put aside. So I've got I've got half a package, and the full package is 16 ounces. So I've got about 8 ounces of noodles here. The water is going. So let me tell you what we're putting in this pad thai. So we have some vegan shrimp. It's vegan. Vegan shrimp, people always say, well, what's vegan shrimp? Is it what the shrimp eats? No, this is literally not real. It's made from Japanese yam and soy, okay? It's colored to look like shrimp, but it's not shrimp. So we have vegan shrimp. You can also use vegan chicken if you want to, or you can just use veggies and bypass the veggie meat altogether. We're gonna use half of a white onion, 2 cloves of garlic, bean sprouts. Let me turn this water off. We have some firm tofu that's gonna go in there. We're gonna use green onions or scallions. If you wanna make a super traditional pad thai, you would use garlic chives, which is midway between a scallion and a clove of garlic. Those you can always get at your Asian market. But I wanted to make this dish as, regular supermarket friendly as possible. So we're just gonna use green onions or scallions. Where do you get your vegan shrimp? I can't find them. Okay, so check your ABC, your local Adventist book center. They often have them. Also, if you go to an Asian market, I find quite often your local Asian market, because there is Buddhists are vegan, vegetarian. So there's a lot of meat analogs that you can always find at Asian markets. And this is exactly where I found mine. So you can go to an Asian market and pick it up. Yeah, Shauna, and Shauna, you need to come up here. I ran into you on the plane and I guess I kind of knew that you were local, but I didn't. But you have to absolutely come, and we'll sit down and we'll break bread and we'll make a great vegan meal together. Okay, so next we have some chopped peanuts that are gonna go in there. We've got some lime. We're gonna use some just egg along with the akave tofu scramble magic to give it that real eggy flavor. We're going to use, so typically what gives pad thai that really great pad thai flavor is fish sauce. It's like this super salty, just unique flavor. It comes from basically fermented fish. And contrary to belief, all fish sauce is not made from shrimp and things like that. Some of it is made from anchovies. But since we are a vegan cooking show, we're not using fish sauce. What we're going to use is tamarind paste. This is a great substitute for that fish sauce once we mix it with a little soy sauce and a little brown sugar. Okay? Now, some people go all the way left and they'll use ketchup. Do not do that. This is a great midway replacement for fish sauce. Okay? So we've got that. We've got some brown sugar. We've got some low sodium soy sauce. And I already showed you that we're using some of my tofu scramble magic to get those eggs into shape. So I'm just going to prep my veggies. And typically when you go to a Thai restaurant, when they put those garlic chives on the pad thai, they're huge chunks. And y'all know me. I always say I like to be able to taste everything in a bite. So we're gonna cut these. These are gonna be cut a little smaller. We're not gonna do them super big like you usually find it in your Asian market. So I'm gonna do the green, and then we're gonna do some of the white bottoms. One of the things that I loved about growing up, as many of you know, I grew up in the Bay Area. I grew up in San Francisco. San Francisco is basically the Pacific Rim. I grew up eating so much Asian food, and it was so, as a child, pad thai and Thai food was a place that was food that my parents would take us out to eat. We didn't eat out often, but if we did eat, we would get Thai food. And it's so funny, my mom would call it Thai food. That can mean more than one thing. But she used to call it Thai food, and we used to go out for it. And so I have loved the flavors of Thai food for some time because it really is a mixture of, as I talk about the sweet and the savory and the salty and the spicy all in one bite. The Thai cuisine has really mastered that. All righty, so we've got this cut up. I'm going to put this in one of my pretty little bowls here. Okay, and next we're going to slice up. We have a half of a white onion or a yellow onion, and we're just going to thinly slice this. If you have a hard time evenly and thinly slicing things, I always suggest people do something like get a mandolin. I love mandolins for that because when you have a mandolin, you are rest assured that everything is going to be perfectly sliced. You just have to make sure that you wear a glove when you use that mandolin, because if you don't, baby, you will have a cut on your finger. And I have talked to several people about it and warned them, and for whatever reason they didn't pay attention. The next time I saw them, they had a chunk of finger missing. So if you do use a mandolin, be sure you use that protective glove because it moves so quickly, it gets away from you. All right, so there's half of our onion. Then we've got 2 garlic cloves. And I'm going to use my handy dandy press and just roll on it. That's 1. And that's 2. Now, some people use ginger in their pad thai. I don't. I feel like ginger kind of goes more towards Chinese cuisine or Japanese cuisine. And so I'm not using it. So here's our 2 cloves of garlic are in there. I'm just going to leave it right there. I'm going to grab my pan now. Best case scenario, you would use a wok. But you don't have to use a wok making this pad thai. You just really need a good non-stick pan, which this is, and pretty good heat. And I'm hoping that my alarm does not go off. So while this is warming up, I'm going to take my hot water and I'm going to pour it over these noodles. You see, as I'm pouring, they're already starting to soften. Just make sure you totally submerge these noodles in the hot water. This water was actually boiling, so it's very hot. Don't just use hot water. It had to have been boiling water. So I'm going to ask Alexa to remind me in 5 minutes. Alexa, 5-minute timer.
5 minutes, starting now.
I hate when Alexa does way more than I asked for. All I said was a 5-minute timer, and she's telling me all the other stuff she can do. I did not ask you for all of that. Okay, so our pan is warming up. What we are going to do, let me not do that. First, what we're going to do is we're going to make our sauce. Now, I always like to have a little extra sauce because depending on who's eating it, some people like their pad thai very saucy. Some people don't. I like mine a little saucy. So we're going to make our sauce, and we've got 1.5 tablespoons of tamarind sauce. Okay. We're going to make a little more than the recipe calls for. And we've got our 3 tablespoons of our brown sugar. We have got, how much soy sauce are we using? 2 tablespoons of reduced sodium soy sauce. I'm just going to mix that up a little bit, and then I've got some water to thin it out. You can also use coconut aminos. You can use tamari. You don't have to use soy sauce or low sodium soy sauce for that matter. And there are many ways. I always say this and I laugh because this is a vegan cooking show. There are many ways to skin a cat. So it really depends on how you want it. Okay. So traditionally the sauce would have fish sauce in it and it would have oyster sauce in it. Would you all believe that I did not realize till about a month ago that oyster sauce actually has oysters in it. I don't know what I thought oyster sauce was made from. It's not something that I use, but yeah, like about a month ago, I was like, what do you mean oyster sauce has oysters in it? Okay, so let's see. Mm, that's good. All right, so we've got our sauce made. We're gonna put it aside and let's get ready. Okay, our pan is nice and hot. We're gonna use about 2 tablespoons of, of sesame oil. Now this is this is like 3 or 4 servings, so we're good. And to this, I'm gonna put my onions in the pan. I'm gonna add my garlic to the pan. Cook that up a little bit. This is also the kind of dish, like as I was saying, if you didn't want to use vegetarian meat, you could always just use a lot of veggies. And one of the things I like to do sometimes when I make pad thai is use some raw red cabbage at the end. It just adds great texture and great flavor to it. So this is one of those things that you can really play around with and make it your own. But just whatever you do not use ketchup. Do you know the other day I saw somebody cleaning off ground in like their burner on their stove? They used ketchup and it cleaned off their stove. You don't need to use ketchup. That lets you know everything you need to know about ketchup, that it can be used to clean off baked in, ground in dirt and grime. Okay, so that's done. Now we're gonna add our vegan shrimp. We've got just under a minute left for our noodles, so we do not want to overcook them. While that's cooking, I'm gonna take my firm tofu. I'm gonna cut that into little pieces. This is great because we're getting a lot of plant protein in this dish. You don't want to cut it too small. Now, I like to use marinated tofu when I do this. You can use plain tofu as well. I like to use the marinated tofu because I like all those flavors. All right. Alexa, turn off timer. All right. So now I'm going to take this, I'm going to transfer this to a colander, and I'm going to run cold water over it to stop the cooking process. We're continuing to cook this, which is looking really good. Just going to move the water around. Move the noodles around in the cold water to make sure that it's stopping the heat, because it will continue to cook as long as that heat is there. Excellent. Those look great. Let me show you what they look like. See that? Excellent. Okay, so those are rinsed and those are going to be ready to go. So we have sauteed our vegan shrimp, our onions, and our garlic. And now what we're going to do is we're going to use some of our Just Egg. I'm going to push everything to the side and use half of the pan and do the egg. Now, if you're not comfortable with this, you can always do it separately and just toss it all together in the end. I'm just going to sprinkle some of this tofu scramble magic to give it that eggy flavor. Just let that cook for a little bit, and then we're going to mix in the shrimp the onions, and the garlic. So we used about a half of the container of the just egg for that. You could always use more if you like. It's your preference. There's no perfect recipe. It's just what works for you. So we've got this egg cooking. Just gonna scramble it a little bit. And once it's dried down a good amount, then I'm gonna mix it in with the shrimp and the onions and the garlic. This is smelling so good, if I do say so myself. Are you all able to see that? Okay. So now it's cooked enough, so I'm gonna now mix in the onions, garlic, shrimp all together. Now I'm gonna add a handful of my bean sprouts. That's gonna go in there. I'm gonna add in this tofu that I've cut up. See how quickly this is going? And then I'm gonna add in my sauce. I'm gonna reserve, I'm not gonna use all my sauce, I'm gonna reserve some of it. I'm just gonna mix it up a little bit. For that, I'm using like half of it, I would say. Okay. Now, mix this till it kind of warms through. It smells great. Now let's add our noodles. It's about a half a package worth of the noodles. And we're just gonna mix that in there. See how it's taking on the color? We got our bits of egg in there. And of course, if you had a bigger pan, it would be even easier, but you see I'm not really being limited by the size pan I'm using. One of the things that a wok would do if you used it is it would kind of stick a little bit, which is kind of good sometimes. You know, I kind of like those little crispy parts that happen with the noodles when it's cooked at high heat. Okay. So we're just gonna let this cook for a little bit so some of that sauce is absorbed into the noodles. And if you've noticed, the only salt that went into this was the reduced sodium soy that went into the sauce. Okay, and I like to do that. So if any other salt goes into this, it's going to be by the individual who is eating it. I'd rather have to add salt than you can't take it away. So I'd rather have that be the issue. Okay, so the sauce is cooked in here pretty well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some of the chives and some of the peanuts. If you have a peanut allergy, of course, you don't have to use them, but that is something as well that gives pad thai its unique flavor. Oops, something just jumped out the pan. This looks and smells so good. And guess what time it is? It's time to plate. it is time to plate. What time is it, folks? 8:25. Look at that. I keep telling you, these dishes are not complicated dishes. They're not. You can fix a restaurant quality meal in under 30 minutes for a third of the price, and you know exactly what's going into the dish because you made it yourself. And you know, you all should know, a lot of times restaurants, most of the time, they are all about flavor. They're not about health. So, you know, and given the climate that we're living in now, with what's going on with COVID, you really need to be taking better care and not really going out like you usually did. So, hey, now you can take advantage of these things. So we put some noodles in the pan, in the bowl, and I'm just gonna grab some egg and some shrimp and some tofu. Now this is the point, if you wanted to add cabbage, I would put it on at this point, after I cooked. And take that off the fire. Move this over. Now another key thing for this dish is lime. You want some lime. With some lime flavor there. So I'm just gonna cut this and serve it with a wedge. And let's just dress this up and make it pretty. So we're gonna add some more of those chopped, crushed peanuts at the end. Some more of our scallions. Some more of our bean sprouts. Love the crunch of these bean sprouts. And my favorite thing is this micro cilantro, which is very Thai, and it's very good for you. Ladies and gentlemen, vegan shrimp pad thai. Isn't that a lovely plate? This is done in under 30 minutes. Honestly, I'll tell you, this is probably about $10 to $12 worth of groceries, and I only used half the packet of noodles. So this literally can feed a family of 4, more than one serving. I used the rice noodles, which were good. You would do the exact same process for the healthy noodles. Only difference is you just rinse these off and then you would cook them. They don't have to be boiled. Rinse them off, but this is a great substitute if you're trying to get away from rice and starch. The best option is to use zucchini noodles. Delicious. You can use them raw and just, you know, toss them at the last minute, and you can saute them a little bit. Whatever you decide to do, delicious. I'm so proud of myself, and I cannot wait to see. Oh, okay, Shauna, come, we'll make it together. I can't wait to see how yours turn out. Vegan shrimp pad thai on Reclaiming Your Health. See you all next week. Have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.